Hello there. Welcome in. Hopefully you had a tremendous holiday weekend, and I appreciate you joining me, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or you're watching the show anywhere you scroll. That's how to do it, and I appreciate you doing it regardless of where you are tuning in to the show. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics over the course of the program, and I'd love to get your thoughts. You could call or text them into the show at 719-247-1313, or if you are watching on the aforementioned stream, you can just drop a comment right there. And I want to start where everybody's starting today. You know, I was taught at an early age that two wrongs don't make a right. That the way you rectify a mistake matters. I thought that this was a universal belief taught to people in every walk of life in every country on planet Earth. But then I remember that most of the social norms do not apply to FIFA, or at least they choose to ignore them. Balogun should not have gotten a red card against Bosnia and Herzegovina. I was on this show the day after saying as much. He did not deserve that. Was not a red card. However, I don't think that it is right that FIFA seemingly suspended the suspension of his red card, or born out of his red card, after having pressure applied to them by the host country. I don't think that's right. FIFA has never done this, by the way. They've never done this. To take a suspension due to a red card that was picked up in the tournament by their officials and then say, nah, you're not suspended. They've never done this. And now the floodgates are completely open, and you have every team, France, England, going to them and saying, well, we want our card rescinded. Like, there's a reason why they don't overturn these. And this is one of the reasons, because every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to come out of the woodwork and say, well, you need to look at this one. A historical precedent has been set out of nowhere. And if it's not because the host country applied pressure on FIFA or implored FIFA, however you want to phrase it, a call from the host country, if that's not what tipped the scales, then this so-called independent body that oversees these kind of things, they need to work a little bit faster. What else have they been doing over the past 4 or 5 days that just yesterday they get around to doing this? Like, we're all locked into the World Cup. What are you doing that it takes this long to decide? So you can't, the optics just do not shine favorably on FIFA, because it looks like the president made a call and then you decided, you know what, you're right. And I don't think that that's right. And this has nothing to do with who is currently in power in this country, although who is in power in this country might be the reason why they felt so emboldened to go to FIFA and interfere with their workings. But I don't care. I am almost always opposed to politicians getting involved in sports, because I think they mess it up. I think they're in it just to score cheap political points, and I don't want their help. So this is not a side of the aisle. This is not based on who the president is. This is, to me, not okay, regardless of the country, regardless of the person in charge of said country. If there was a reason to overturn the red card to Flo Balogun in this Article 27 that has been produced, that apparently was there all along and FIFA just never thought to use it, like, this is the time. This is the time for them to use this. This rule has always been on the books. They've never used it, and now they do. I mean, it's all a little too convenient, isn't it? For an American player, when the tournament is being held on American soil and they got a call from the powers that be in the United States of America, and then Article 27 is invoked. And I think for Belgium, they have every right to be furious with this decision, not just because FIFA has never done this before, so why they could feel a little bit attacked. Like, why are you allowing this to happen to us when you've never allowed it to happen in the history of the World Cup? And also the timing. We were talking immediately after Balogun was sent off that he shouldn't have been red carded. And then the next day came along, and then the next day, and then the next day. And it's like the time, Belgium, if you reversed it that night or reversed it the next day, then Belgium has less of an argument, because it's like you got the entire weekend to now game plan for the potential of Flo Balogun playing. But for this to happen the day before the match, Belgium has every right to feel hard done by and every right to be vocal in their opposition of this decision. Now, they can take it a little bit too far, and I think it's important to keep the focus where it needs to be focused. This is not on Flo Balogun. This is not on Mauricio Pochettino. This is not on U.S. soccer. These are people above them doing these things. FIFA being corrupt is not something that just came along now, and the U.S. bears no responsibility in how corrupt FIFA is. And they also have no power over the leader of the free world. So I think Belgium, in their statement, UEFA as well, the organization for European football, I think they all went a little too far here. And going and pointing the finger at U.S. soccer, pointing the finger at the U.S. men's national team. This is not on them. This is out of their control, just like the red card was out of their control. But I understand the sentiment, and we have to be fair. If we were in Belgium, we would be furious. So we have to have that level of understanding and also look at this situation and say, this stinks. Just all in all, front to back, this stinks. The red card stinks. The suspension of the suspension stinks. It just all stinks. But if you're just getting, involved in soccer because this World Cup has been so amazing, FIFA's been doing stuff like this for a very long time. Okay, they are not. You want to talk about your problems with the NBA, the NFL, the NCAA. FIFA has all of them beat combined. So I think we are complex creatures, aren't we? We don't play that way on social media sometimes, but we are complex creatures, and we are able to have multiple thoughts in our head at the same time. It is okay to say this all stinks and have some level of empathy for Belgium and say, you know what? If I were in that position, if it was my team, I would be angry. And I would feel justified in my anger. But we can also say that U.S. soccer doesn't have to abide by some, higher, do they have to act better than FIFA does? And what I mean by that is they should absolutely play Flo Balogun the way they see fit. Okay, in many ways, they didn't ask for this. They wanted this, but they didn't ask for it. They didn't will this to happen. So I don't think I've seen some people suggest that the U.S. should not play Balogun. I'm sorry. They should play him. Now, if you want to be so bold, if you're Mauricio Pochettino, to not start him, because let's keep in mind, too, that the U.S. has been preparing for the better part of a week to not have him. So there could be a soccer reason to not start Flo Balogun and have him waiting in the second half if you need a goal. But wouldn't that be the ultimate? If the U.S. tonight says we're not starting Balogun, and yet they still jump all over Belgium. If I'm Mauricio Pochettino and Flo Balogun has played the way he has, I probably start him. It's not like they're unfamiliar with what they do when he's in the lineup. So I don't think they have to say, you know what, we're taking a stand because we don't believe what FIFA did or what reportedly the administration did. If Balogun's available to them, then you make the best decision for your team. And I think both of those thoughts can be in your head at one time, and they're not necessarily in conflict with one another. It's a difficult situation that you have been put in as a U.S. fan, that the U.S. men's national team has been put in. But here's the other thing, too. If you're a fan of the U.S., you can have those two thoughts in. And like me, you could be thrilled that Flo Balogun is going to be available tonight. That's okay. Because I'm happy that he's playing. I don't agree with him being suspended in the first place. And I don't agree with the way that FIFA went about this to get this red card overturned or the suspension suspended. But I'm happy the guy's going to be in the lineup. And you don't have to apologize for that because, again, it's not on you. It's not on you to say, you know what, I feel bad, so I'm going to root for Belgium, or I hope that the U.S. loses. That's nonsense. And when the conversation inevitably comes around, because I said this last week, I think the U.S. was going to win without Flo Balogun. Now, we'll never know unless Balogun just stays on the bench the entire game. But I believed that the U.S. was going to beat Belgium even without him. If he plays, you will see the word asterisk thrown all around social media, and you've probably seen it already. I hate asterisks. I'm not one to put one by the Lakers bubble title. I'm not about that. So please defend the U.S.'s win tonight against people who will say it deserves an asterisk. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Because one could argue that the bigger injustice that has played out here is the initial red card. Okay, so you really want to get in the weeds about it. We can go around and around. Be happy he's in the lineup. Mauricio Pochettino, use him as you see fit. And let's try to get this World Cup back on track because it has been absolutely phenomenal. And it has a chance to go off the rails now because of the decision FIFA made. Let's not allow it to do that. Let's have a great match tonight between the U.S. and Belgium as the U.S. And I've said this is the dividing line. U.S. loses. This World Cup is a disappointment. They win. It's maybe their most successful run ever. They need a win tonight to cross that threshold. In the meantime, take your thoughts on all of this. 719-247-1313. Do you agree with FIFA's decision and, more importantly, the way they went about it? Because I don't. But Balogun shouldn't have been suspended in the first place. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, we have gone from the decision to the whiteboard when it comes to LeBron James's free agent decisions. Joining me next is the man that wrote the book on LeBron's time in LA, Yaron Weitzman, my guest after this. Well, like I said before the break, we have gone from the decision to the whiteboard when it comes to where LeBron James chooses to continue his basketball career. Joining me now to discuss is the author of A Hollywood Ending, The Dreams and Drama of the LeBron Lakers, Yaron Weitzman, my guest. Yaron, pleasure to have you back on, man. How are things?
Good. Thanks for having me. When we talked last week, I didn't think we'd be talking about Denver, right? I didn't really think it was going to be a specific connection like that.
Yeah, we're happy about. Well, I would say most people are happy.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, yeah. I would say that it was a little bit mixed when we started talking about this last week. There's some people that have a deep, healthy sports hatred for LeBron James, and we'll see how that goes. I think if he chooses Denver, everything will be all good. Yeah, I think that would be it. Let's talk about the end to his LA chapter. Would you say that LeBron James was a all-time great Laker or an all-time great who played for the Lakers?
That's a good one. I'm gonna go more for the latter, right? Let me back up. I guess his Lakers tenure is incredibly weird and strange to kind of look back on. So the positives, he won a title, obviously. Can't take that away. Bubble, whatever. Not only did he win a title, but he resuscitated that franchise. I think people forget how bad a spot the Lakers were in before he came, right? And if he hadn't come, I don't know that they would have recovered. Like, I think it might have been a disaster. The Genie Bus took over for her father, legendary Jerry Bus, and there's been nothing that's going to come off as harsh. And I've had my own Genie Bus threatened to sue me about my book, so I guess you have to add that with the caveat. So maybe if someone would say I'm biased on this one, I'm really not, but whatever. She's really done little in her tenure as owner-governor to display that she's good at the job, right? Like they were really bad when she took over, after she took over for her father. Fans might remember sort of the golden parachute extension contract they gave Kobe Bryant and flailing and all they weren't going anywhere. And she really hasn't done a good job other than bringing in LeBron. They brought in Anthony Davis, and that's basically it, right? Until the Luka trade. So LeBron, all of that being said, that LeBron saved them. Take that away, I don't know what the Lakers look like. So to the point of being an all-time great Laker, I guess you give him that. That said, 8 years, was it 9 years? I should know this by heart, whatever it was. And only one trip to the finals. Forget the titles, but just one finals trip. I don't know. It's going to pale in comparison to Kobe, Shaq, Kareem, Magic, Elgin, West. I just named 6 guys without even thinking.
Mm-hmm. Why is it, though? Because you laid it out with what the Lakers were, and you chronicle this in your book, where the Lakers were and where they might be. It's not a stretch to think they'd still be mired in all of that had LeBron not shown up. Do you find it odd at all that there's almost I'll stop short of saying celebratory when it comes to the Laker fan reaction, but is it weird to you that there is relief or some kind of positive emotion along with LeBron leaving for Lakers fans?
So LeBron's relationship to Lakers fans is really interesting. The context, not to be book guy who always gives context, right? But the important context to know about this is that you got to go back to LeBron Kobe, right? And before LeBron gets there, LeBron and Kobe are pitted against each other as rivals. And that's not just like on First Take. That's in Nike. People might remember the puppets. There were these talking puppets commercials and things like that. So Lakers fans become very defensive. Lakers fans love Kobe. People in your area probably know this as well as anyone, right? But Lakers fans love Kobe, apologize for everything he did and whatever doing. Just, where Kobe, the definition, like the phrase "stan" really applies to how Lakers fans feel about Kobe. And what do you do when you're arguing for somebody in a rivalry? You end up arguing against the other guy, right? So if Lakers fans have spent years basically arguing against LeBron, and then LeBron comes in, and the Lakers are probably the one fan base where he doesn't get a celebratory parade for coming in. And it wasn't just that they were arguing against LeBron. Kobe and LeBron were like polar opposites in everything in terms of how they approached the game. Kobe was Mamba mentality, shoot over 14 guys. I'm not going to pass the ball. LeBron, people might remember all the First Take type segments. Should he pass the open man? Did he make the right move? Like they're polar opposites there. LeBron, obviously friends with people and fellow stars. That was not how Kobe operated. Just complete opposites in all these ways. And then you drop LeBron in, and all of a sudden Lakers fans are told they have to embrace this guy. He's also, Lakers are known for being home to stars, but he was the only one who was a fully formed icon when he got there. Most of them grew up under the Lakers. Shaq was a star before, but he wasn't like the Shaq we all know. LeBron, again, fully formed icon, not just a star when he gets to LA. And it's just from the start, it's this, I call it the merger between sort of these two iconic NBA institutions of the Lakers and LeBron. So you have all that together. And then on top of that, you have that his greatest highlight there happened in a literal bubble. And there's no way for fans to form emotional connections. There's no fans in stands, no parade, nothing along those lines. Like, I live in New York. The Knicks won the title. I'm sure you guys remember, when Nuggets won a title, like it creates something in the city, right? And it creates fans and these touch points that fans hold on to for the rest of their lives. And LeBron did not have any of those while he was in LA. So put that all together, and that's why you sort of get this, hey, was he really with us? I don't know. He kind of held us against us, and Clutch was, leveraging us and pushing us to do things. Not always the case, by the way. And I think that's where sort of this relief comes from. Last part, they also have the replacement in there already in Luka, right? So maybe if they didn't, they'd be more angst, but they're ready to move on to Luka anyway.
Yaron Weitzman, my guest, author of A Hollywood Ending, The Dreams and Drama of the LeBron Lakers. If you were to write, I don't think it's a whole nother book, whatever's left in LeBron's career, but if you were to somehow add to what you wrote in your previous book, what do you think would be the most compelling story for LeBron in terms of finishing his career into landing spot? I'm talking about what would be most compelling, do you think, for LeBron's next basketball destination?
So I'm bored by the Cavs part of it. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Like, I feel like we did that already. The return home and the winning a title. So that's not interesting to me. I'm gonna. Maybe your listeners will not love this. The Golden State one is the one that I find just really intriguing and fun, and the idea of go play with Steph and with Steve Kerr and Draymond and maybe Anthony Davis. Like, that's different and cool. That might just also be the writer in me, where I just like want to see those people put under one roof. I think I'd be ready for something different, which maybe is sort of the antithesis. Like, we think of Jordan, the Wizards, and being different is weird. But I think that would be sort of perfect for LeBron. I don't know. It is a different type of career. And if you did the baseball type thing where you go into Hall of Fame and what hat do you put on, I don't know what the answer is for him. Probably Cleveland, because he got them the title. I don't really know. So I think somewhere new would be fun. So to me, it's the Golden State. Playing with Jokic would be pretty cool too. That'd just be fun from a basketball perspective. But the Steph with the Warriors and he gets to go up against the Lakers, like that's the one that I kind of want to see.
And that leads me into, if you were willing to just say, Denver's that place. If that's where LeBron ended up, what would be the story there? Is it just the two, basketball geniuses playing together? I mean, what would be the appeal for Denver for LeBron?
Yeah, I think two basketball geniuses playing together and a legitimate shot at winning a title, which I don't think he has. I mean, if you're kind of going, should we pull out a Rich Paul whiteboard, right? But we pull that out. Yeah, like, I don't think Golden State is that. The way I've kind of thought about the Golden State possible situation there would be, that's a team that could beat anyone in a playoff series, but there's no way in hell they're making it through 2 months of playoff basketball, right? Denver, I mean, he slots in really nicely there, right? Gives them something they can really use. Like, that's, if you're looking to check the boxes of where you can legitimately win, but it's not, I don't necessarily believe in this anyway, but it's not just it's not quote ring chasing. It's that you are providing an essential need for them in a way where that if it does get done, it's not going to be all because of you, but it will be that you will have played a major role in that winning. I mean, that seems pretty appealing to me.
Yaron Weitzman, my guest. The book, great read, right? Especially right now with the end of LeBron James's time in LA, A Hollywood Ending, The Dreams and Drama of the LeBron Lakers. Also, just extra, you want to add Tanking to the Top to your reading list. please do that. How far has that organization come in the last couple of weeks? Your own with
Wild.
With Jaylen Brown going to Philly, but that's also a fascinating read on those trust the process Sixers, and apparently, according to Jaylen Brown, the process is back on. Your own really appreciate the time and the insight, and I look forward to the next time you and I get a chat.
Same here, my pleasure, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure as well. That is Yaron Weitzman, terrific writer. Both of the books I mentioned are phenomenal, and you should absolutely pick them up. Now, since we're on the subject of the whiteboard, I would like to give my whiteboard thoughts coming up next on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. The NFR Open at the Pikes Peak or Bust Rodeo promises edge of your seat excitement, featuring over 200 of the most talented contestants in the business, along with a variety of other traditional Western events, sure to please the whole family. Get your tickets now, pikespeakorbust.org. My thanks again to Yaron Weitzman for joining me. So the whiteboard, if you haven't seen it, Rich Paul on his podcast with Max Kellerman, I actually am very intrigued by this, and I'll tell you why. Because it means that Rich Paul, when he goes to advise LeBron, is kind of laying everything out the way that you and I do. I mean, it's LeBron's name in the middle, and it's the core of Philly and Miami and Minnesota and Denver and Cleveland. And then you get to look, okay, if LeBron goes here, what does that do? What if, is there a fit here? So I actually find that part of it to be fascinating, along with one of the draws of Dallas being oil. I found that one to be a little bit interesting. Not the basketball, but the oil in Dallas is intriguing. But here's the thing, and I'll say once again that when you lay it out this way, I don't know how you can argue any of those other spots other than Denver. I really can't. And something that Yaron brought up in the last segment, and I've been having this conversation with people. Like, we're a little bit down right now on the Denver Nuggets. And I think for good reason, the way the last couple of seasons have ended. However, we're talking about what the Nuggets have, which we acknowledge is still maybe the third or fourth best roster in the Western Conference. And saying if LeBron gets added, that could put them back on equal footing with Oklahoma City and San Antonio. So we're down on the Nuggets, but the Nuggets with LeBron, that's a little bit different. That changes the calculus a little bit. And I look at these landing spots, at least the ones that are more, I know the Knicks were listed on there in Dallas and all this, but of the ones where he listed the actual core of players, you can't tell me that Denver's not the best basketball fit. I refuse to believe it. Too many mouths to feed in Philly. I think LeBron still has some personal pride to where he wants to make a difference for a team. You got Maxey, you got Edgecombe, you got Jaylen Brown now, who has said previously he wants to be a number one guy, and you have this specter of Embiid hanging over the organization. And I like the Sixers, and I think they're going places this year. I'm just saying, if LeBron wants to go and be another thing Yaron said, kind of the reason that a team competes and potentially wins a championship, I don't know that that happens in Philadelphia because there are just so many other players there. Then you go to Miami. They're basically half a basketball team right now after the trade. So they're an incomplete roster that LeBron James, to me, doesn't make whole. The Cavaliers, with the James Harden thing, I don't know how basketball-wise Harden and LeBron are supposed to coexist. And then Minnesota, I give credit to Tim Connolly for making the move for LaMelo Ball, and I'm not as down on that move as other people are. I think you got to be different. If you can't truly improve by just adding a player without losing anything, then just be different. And Minnesota's being different. But if I'm LeBron at 41 years old, and this is where I'm going to spend the rest of my NBA career, I don't want to join up with Minnesota without having some proof of concept with LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards together. I think it's going to work, but at LeBron's stage of his career, can he really risk that this is clunky and doesn't really work and LaMelo really hasn't turned a corner? to say nothing of his injury concerns. So it's on paper, on the whiteboard, as it were, it's intriguing. But if I'm LeBron, I'm not taking that chance. What you have with Denver, and he lists Murray, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic. You have three of those guys have won a title together. One has gone to an NBA Finals on a different team. You have the only player that could rival you in basketball IQ in Nikola Jokic. The ball movement on the Nuggets would be insane. You have a guy that can get as hot as any scorer in the league in Jamal Murray, and now you're letting him play off the ball, which I think can benefit him. You have Aaron Gordon doing all the dirty work. Like, it almost makes too much sense. And on top of it, Rich Paul and LeBron like the Cronkies more than maybe you and I do right now. Rich Paul was quite effusive with his praise when it comes to Stan and Josh Kroenke. We're a little bit down on him, but apparently the Clutch Sports Group isn't. So it makes all the sense in the world, almost too much sense, if you really think about it. But what has to be kept in mind here is that this is how, as fascinating a look as this is, and as much as you look at it as a Nuggets fan and you say, why would he go to any of these other places? This is only how Rich Paul's going to present the information to LeBron. Okay, Rich Paul's not making the decision here. And that's what is in the back of, I think, all of our minds here. We can make the case maybe that Philadelphia is the best team of this group. We could make the case that Denver is the best basketball fit where LeBron can actually move the needle. And we can look at this analytically and look at this with the logical parts of our brain. And then there's the other side where Cleveland. Right? That's where Cleveland resides. It doesn't make basketball sense because he can't coexist with James Harden. I truly don't believe that. But is LeBron making a decision with his heart and not his mind? And that's why the sentiment that you're seeing out there from NBA insiders is everyone thinks it's going to be Cleveland, because that's the one thing you can't put on a whiteboard. Home and what that means to LeBron. And I've said, look, if he goes to Cleveland, I get it. Going to Miami and having an Act 2 down there doesn't make any sense to me, but going to Cleveland, like, I get it. Go home. End your career there. I get that. If it's anybody other than Cleveland, then there are going to be some difficult questions to be asked. And is this really about basketball? You have to tell me why going to a half a roster that Miami has, or going and betting on the Ant LaMelo experiment in year one makes more sense than joining up with Nikola Jokic. But if it is Cleveland, like I said, is it really about basketball? And here's once again another piece of unsolicited advice from me to LeBron James. He hasn't listened to one of my pieces of advice his entire career, because I said the best basketball place for him to go 8 years ago was Denver, and I still believe that. It was still a better spot basketball-wise for him to go 8 years ago than LA, but he didn't ultimately make the decision based on basketball, did he? And here's my advice. Don't do that again. Okay? If you're really thinking through this thing, we'll bite. Okay? If you're really weighing it and it's really about basketball, we'll have the conversation and we'll go along with it. But if it's Cleveland and you just want to, it's Cleveland, but you also kind of want to see don't do that. Don't string everybody along. Okay? If it's Cleveland, then just go. Because the longer you wait, the more it's going to feel like other teams have a chance, which means the fan bases of those teams are going to turn, if they're not already turned against LeBron. You're going to get more criticism if you string everybody along, and this occupies our entire summer only for you to go back to Cleveland for non-basketball reasons. And that's the other thing, too. You're saying it's about basketball. Okay, you're saying it's about golf as well. But most of these places, other than Minnesota in the winter, you can golf. If it's about basketball, you can't say it's Cleveland. So the longer that idea is perpetuated, that LeBron James is making a real basketball decision, the worse it's going to look when you just inevitably go back to Cleveland. So if it's Cleveland, if you're over 50% Cleveland, then just drop the charade and just go. It'll be a great story. I'm not saying it's a bad story for him to go back to Cleveland. It's a fitting end to his career. But it also didn't require this much thinking. And that's where I'm at with the whiteboard and, the reports over the weekend. It won't be anytime soon. If it's Cleveland, then why is it taking this long? Other than, and I know what you're going to say, especially if you're not the biggest fan of LeBron, he wants all the attention on him. And I know there's some truth to that. But that's why I'm saying LeBron this one time, don't. Don't. You said 8 years ago it was about basketball, and you chose a completely wayward organization. And to your credit, you got it right. Anthony Davis came in. You guys won a title. Kudos to you for that. But there was no basketball reason at the time to choose LA. You chose LA because of Space Jam. Don't do that same thing again where you're perpetuating the idea that this is about basketball only for you to just go to a place that has nothing to do with basketball. Because he doesn't fit with this roster in Cleveland. And specifically, he doesn't fit with James Harden. Now, there's something else that was mentioned by Rich Paul on the podcast when he specifically was talking about the Denver Nuggets. The hurdle they still have in re-signing Peyton or signing Peyton Watson. Watson is another client of Rich Paul. Here's where it matters. Okay? LeBron James is not... Tyrese Maxey is the only guy with a star next to his name on the whiteboard as being like a special buddy to LeBron James. LeBron James probably does not care one bit whether Peyton Watson is on the Denver Nuggets or not. But the guy that may be advising LeBron James does care. In Rich Paul. And if you want LeBron to be on the Denver Nuggets, then you want as many people on your side as you can get. And having Rich Paul is probably the best ally that you can have. And what's the best way to keep Rich Paul on your side and allow Rich Paul to feel that he wants to not push LeBron, but say, hey, Denver would be a really good spot for you. You take care of Peyton Watson. And there's different ways to do that. Okay, the reports today there's two. One, that the Nuggets are willing to match any offer that Peyton Watson gets on the open market or semi-open market. It is restricted free agency. And then the other thing is they are open to sign and trade possibilities. I like that one better. But either way, you are taking care of Peyton Watson. I don't think Peyton Watson has to be on the Denver Nuggets for LeBron James to come to Denver. But I think it would help in keeping Rich Paul on the side of the Denver Nuggets, if he is leaning that way at all, to make sure that Peyton Watson gets paid. And to me, the ideal scenario with the numbers where they are, $25 million or whatever it's going to be, sign and trade. Let somebody else take on that contract. I think that's the best course of action when it comes to Peyton Watson right now. If the Clippers are interested, as they're the newest team to be rumored, reportedly linked to Peyton Watson. You can have him. We got to sign him for this, but you can have him in exchange for some assets. But the Nuggets here, if they want to give themselves the best chance to land LeBron, I think it's to make sure that Peyton Watson does not get squeezed here. And whether he's being paid by the Clippers for the next 5 years or the Nuggets for the next 5 years. Just making sure that he doesn't get squeezed. Because then all of a sudden, Rich Paul may not be as big a supporter of LeBron going to Denver. And it's a tricky situation for the Nuggets in that regard. Because without the specter of LeBron, I say the Nuggets should squeeze Peyton Watson. And I don't say that with any animus towards Peyton Watson whatsoever. But this organization has given out some of the worst contracts in the history of that franchise. They cannot do this again. Which was why I was heartened to see that the Nuggets were hesitant to give Peyton Watson the same amount of money as Christian Brown, because they should be reticent to do that, because Christian Brown's contract is now a huge albatross around the neck of the organization. The Nuggets have the hammer with restricted free agency. If somebody else comes in and offers them a ton of money, then it's a different ball of wax. But for now, nobody has bid on Peyton Watson, so the Nuggets can name their price. And if they can save a few bucks and not overpay for a guy that, we have to be honest, had a good month and a half this season, and that's supposed to, be this is just Peyton Watson now, I'd be a little bit worried about that. So it's a balancing act that the Nuggets have here, because I don't know how you can't be a little hesitant giving a contract $25-30 million to Peyton Watson. But if you believe you have a realistic chance at getting LeBron James, you don't want to draw the ire of Rich Paul. So there's a delicate balance, and I think the Nuggets are trying to strike it, because that's where you're getting the $30 million. That's where you're getting the general sentiment from the Nuggets that we love Peyton Watson, we want to keep him here, and we're willing to do whatever it takes. I think that's showing something to the most powerful agency in the NBA. But when it comes time to actually get the deal done, they can't do whatever it takes to keep Peyton Watson, because that would be another bad contract handed out. It's tricky. It'd be a lot easier if LeBron James would just make his decision and we could all move on. But alas, that's not going to happen anytime soon. 719-24-7-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. Welcome in. Great to have you, whether you're listening on the streaming apps of Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR, which is a great way to listen to the show, or you're watching anywhere you scroll at Extra Sports 1300 at 740 KVOR. You can also follow me on social media and find the show at GingerWatch on Instagram, also on Threads. A little bit more activity from yours truly on Threads over the past few days. I'm kind of liking it. So maybe we could chat there about a certain soccer match tonight. Of course, before we get into the business of whether or not the U.S. will beat Belgium and how they will fare against now Spain, which is waiting for them in the quarterfinal after they beat Portugal today 1-0. The suspension of the suspension when it comes to Flo Balogun. Egregious red card, absolutely. But I said to start the show today that you can also look at how FIFA went about this and said this stinks. Like there's a right process, there's a wrong process, there's a right way to do things, there's a wrong way to do things, and FIFA so often finds themselves on the wrong end of it. And Belgium has every right to be completely incensed by this. And I know that a lot of people are clowning on Belgium because they're appealing and FIFA basically told them, like, he didn't pick up a red card against you. So you really can't say anything here. And I know that it's, the rivalry and the heat of the World Cup. A lot of people are dunking on Belgium. Oh, you're just trying to duck, Flo Balogun. You don't want to take on the best of the United States. And look, it's easy to do that. But let's not forget that we spent multiple days over the last couple of weeks going, well, it would be better if the U.S. played Bosnia as opposed to the U.S. having to play, Ecuador, for instance. So let's not act like we as sports fans don't appreciate when, to an extent, when the team that is playing our favorite team is maybe less than full strength. Right? Deep down. And here's the other thing with Belgium. This isn't hoping that Flo Balogun is hurt. This is them wanting FIFA to adhere by their procedure that they have gone through throughout the entire history of the World Cup. What they did to overturn this red card, unprecedented. And I know people are bringing up the Cristiano Ronaldo thing. It's not the same. This is a red card that was taken in the World Cup. They have never overturned one of these. So Belgium has every right to be upset, and you have to, at some level, understand where they are coming from. That leads to a text from Scott in Florissant. Good to hear from you, Scott. Been a minute. Said, Ryan totally agreed. The question that can't be answered is, would FIFA lifted the ban without the call from POTUS? And what would the reaction be if Putin had done the same thing when Russia was host? And that's what I'm saying. We can't know, but the timing of all of this is a little suspicious, is it not? We went 4 days without even an inkling of a thought that Flo Balogun was going to be able to play. Then the administration makes a phone call to FIFA. Did they threaten? Did they lobby? Did they ask politely? We don't know that for sure either. But we know for a fact that President Trump called Infantino the head of FIFA. We know that. And after that call took place, this independent committee got around to overturning the red card or suspending the suspension. So the timing is the timing. And again, look at the context clues. FIFA is the most corrupt sports organization on planet Earth. Okay, they have been available to the highest bidder or to the person with the most power. And there's very few people with more power than the president of the country that your World Cup is taking place in. Okay, and for FIFA to have never done this and just all of a sudden decided that the red card against an American player on American soil just is finally the red card that crossed a line. Right? Like that is all very quite the coincidence, is it not? But as Scott says, we don't know for sure. And Infantino, to be fair to both sides of the story, is saying this is an independent committee. I don't even have leverage over them. And if that were true, then this independent committee needs to get off their butts the next time this happens and get something done within 24 hours. What could you have possibly needed to weigh over the course of 72 to 80 to 85 hours when it comes to Flo Balogun's red card? We had all the facts we needed by the end of that match. So if it is purely coincidental that the timing of their decision came after the call from the president, and we are to ignore how corrupt FIFA as an organization has been since the dawn of man, then they're not doing themselves any favors by sitting on their hands through the entire weekend. Now, I will actually make the case that even though the U.S. is getting a key player back into their lineup, I actually think FIFA did not do the U.S. a favor here. I think they did President Trump a favor. I don't think that they did the U.S. a favor. Because now you have added a huge distraction to the home stretch of the lead up to this match. Yes, you get Flo Balogun, and maybe that's what's most important here. But let's not ignore that all of this is perhaps on some level an unwelcome nuisance to a team that is playing in the biggest match in their history tonight. Not just because of the controversy surrounding all of this, but the fact that now it's like, oh, all of a sudden one of our best players is available. We were prepping for 3 days like he wasn't going to play. Was it going to be Haji Wright in the starting 11? Was it going to be Ricardo Pepi? Was it going to be neither? Were they going to completely change their formation? There were all these things that Mauricio Pochettino had been going through the last few days, and all of a sudden, Flo Balogun's back in play. And now you have on the other side a team that's even more motivated in Belgium, and they are. We always talk about that. How could this is the biggest stage these athletes are playing on. How could they not be their maximum amount of motivated? But we always find instances of athletes being pushed beyond that just a little bit, and this could be that for Belgium. One of the most powerful motivations for athletes is proving everyone wrong. The us against the world mentality. And certainly Belgium has that in their corner, do they not? They were already playing on American soil. So the entire crowd, or most of the crowd, is going to be against them. They're playing a team with home field advantage, and now you have this controversial decision come down. Belgium can absolutely paint themselves as the us against the world. So this is not all great for the U.S. Now, ultimately, again, the most important thing is that Flo Balogun is available for Mauricio Pochettino to use, and that certainly does increase the likelihood that the U.S. wins. But there are drawbacks. This is not clean, easy. This is all good for the U.S. and all bad for Belgium. And it's created an unnecessary dynamic to tonight's game. That was already going to be very heated, and there was already a lot of pressure on the U.S. men's national team. So how they deal with it is going to be very interesting to watch. And I've said this throughout the tournament. This team, it's not just been the fact that they've won. To me, what continues to impress about the U.S. men's national team is the way they win, the circumstances in which they win. And the Bosnia match is a great example of it. You go down wrongly, one of your best players, and have to play the last half an hour without him. And yet the U.S. looked just as dangerous with 10 men as Bosnia did with 11. I don't think, for whatever negatives there are with this decision, I don't think it's too much for the U.S. to handle. It's stuff that they have to handle. They have to compartmentalize. They have to, stay off of social media, and they have to drown out turn off the noise, right? But I don't think this situation is one that's going to completely take this team off of its game and cause it to self-destruct against Belgium. I don't believe that. But there are negatives that are being introduced here that didn't need to be. Now, I said that when I assumed Balogun was going to be suspended, because as far as I knew and as far as most people knew, there was no way for the U.S. to get Flo Balogun back. And knowing that, I said the U.S. can beat Belgium. With all of this, the good and the bad of the decision to reinstate Flo Balogun, it's not enough to change my mind. I think that the U.S. is going to win. I think it's going to be, to date, the biggest win that the U.S. men's national team has had ever in a World Cup. And we will say that this is an unquestioned success, this World Cup on home soil for the United States. This Belgian team, they're not what they were last time these two teams met in a World Cup, but they kind of are. And that's part of why I think that the U.S. is better equipped to beat them now. I think the dynamism that the U.S. has, the athletes that they have, and the attacking mentality that they have is the perfect counter to what Belgium does. Belgium, very methodical, pick you apart. I don't think they're going to have the time and space to be able to do that. I think the U.S. is going to be on the front foot, put them on the back foot. I wouldn't be surprised if we get an early goal from the U.S. because it seems to be an every match occurrence. I think they can jump on Belgium early and really force them to push a little bit more than they may have wanted to. And I think that further plays into the hands of the U.S. But not only does Belgium play the same way they did all those years ago, they also have the same players. Right? There's De Bruyne, there's Lukaku. Right? The core of this Belgium team is very similar, which means they are older. And I think the youth, the athleticism, the dynamism, the energy, and the style that the U.S. plays will ultimately make the difference, and they will beat Belgium. And then they just take their swings. And how we believe they will fare against Spain, I think will depend a lot on how they look tonight. If they eke one out, like so many of these matches that we've seen, and maybe don't impress as much as they have, then I don't think that there will be a lot of people saying, we're going to beat Spain. But if they house Belgium, if they dominate the way that they have dominated in most of their matches, I think that belief is going to grow. And I think there will be a lot of people that are like, bring on Spain. Fascinating. It'll be a match to watch. All the more fascinating, not necessarily in a good way, after the decision from FIFA to suspend the suspension of Flo Balogun. Maybe we'll find out the lineup here before too long and see if Balogun is indeed in the starting 11. In the meantime, I'll take your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Coming up next, the Nuggets have been in the rumor mill lately, not just for LeBron, but for other moves that may be running completely counter to what we thought the mentality of the Denver Nuggets would be going into this offseason. I'll explain next. 719-24-7. 1313 is the number if you want to call or text into the show with your thoughts on this Monday. You can also drop a comment on the live stream of today's show anywhere you scroll. This text comes in from Tom regarding the Nuggets' pursuit of LeBron James. Says, you understand that the Lakers fans are celebrating that LeBron is gone, right? Why do you think that is? Why did the Lakers just let him walk out the door? You have to ask yourself these questions before you sign a free agent. And I agree with you. But what you're taking into account is 8 seasons in LA. Things that have built up and festered and gotten worse over the course of 8 years. You're right. You have to ask yourself that. Are the Lakers letting LeBron James go because he's not a good basketball player anymore? I don't think there's evidence last season to suggest that he is not a good basketball player anymore. I think he's still very good. Now, there's the chance that it all just falls apart. He becomes Peyton Manning in Super Bowl 50, the basketball equivalent of that. That is a risk, I suppose. But there's nothing from last year with LeBron in LA that says that he's not an impactful player. And he's impactful in the ways that the Nuggets need him to be impactful, most notably being another ball handler along with Jamal Murray, allowing Murray to play off the ball more, allowing there to be a two-man LeBron and Jokic game. Just saying it gives me goosebumps. So it's not because he's washed as a player. Could it be because for 8 years, he kind of held the organization hostage? Kept forcing them to make moves to improve the roster, to make a move to get his son onto the team. And that is what they kind of grew tired of. I think that is a big reason why. And because I don't think one title in 8 years is up to the standard that Laker fans have. So they say, and if you're a Laker fan, feel free to jump in by all means, because I'm not speaking from personal experience. I'm not a Lakers fan. But I think it's LeBron kind of called the shots, or there was a power struggle within the organization for 8 years, and all you got out of it was one title. And it was at the very beginning. I would think that is a big reason why Laker fans are like, you know what? Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Okay? The question becomes, is LeBron going to be able to do that for the Denver Nuggets? Is he going to be able to come in and hold the organization hostage? And if you believe that he could, what is it for? Like, what's he going to make the Nuggets do? Trade for Bronny? I saw Nuggets fans gleefully mocking Jonas Valanciunas to the Lakers for Bronny. I think there's a segment of Nuggets fans that are like, hey, bring in Bronny. Bronny might be one of the best 3 defenders on the Nuggets if he has to join the club. So I'm not saying that LeBron doesn't want to come into the Nuggets and have some say in things. But he's not going to be doing it for 8 years. And I don't think that he will be able to do it as effectively as he did it with the LA Lakers, because the LA Lakers, as Yaron Weitzman pointed out in hour number 1, are not a well-led organization. They don't have strong leadership. Jeannie Buss is not her father. And I think that the Lakers came in with a weak culture and weak leadership, and that allowed LeBron James to have his say and have the Lakers kowtow to everything that he wanted. I don't think that exists as much with the Denver Nuggets. I don't think that LeBron is going to be in Denver long enough to be able to get his claws into them if that's what you're worried about. And we also have to ask, what is it that LeBron will make the Nuggets do? Because newsflash, the Nuggets have no draft picks. They have no promising young players. That's why the Nuggets need LeBron. They don't have a future as currently constructed. They're not capable of winning a title now, and there's nothing on the horizon that tells you that they're going to be able to win one as long as Nikola Jokic is on the basketball team. So what could LeBron possibly do to make it worse? They have no draft capital and no premium young players that they could offer up in a trade. Case in point, report over the weekend, the Nuggets were indeed in on Jaylen Brown, even went so far as to offer a trade. And that trade was Aaron Gordon and Cam Johnson for Jaylen Brown. Why didn't that happen? Why didn't the Nuggets get a yes? Because Cam Johnson might be a better player than Paul George is right now. And you add Aaron Gordon. That's a better haul in terms of the actual basketball players. Why didn't Boston say yes? Because the Nuggets have no picks. And the Sixers did. That's why. By the way, if the Celtics would have gone for that, I would have been on board. You hate to lose Aaron Gordon, but to get a player like Jaylen Brown, I think, and with the idea that the Nuggets were just trying to dump Cam Johnson's salary anyway, to me, if that trade would have been consummated, I would have praised the move by the Denver Nuggets. I would have lamented the loss of Aaron Gordon, who has been in many ways the heartbeat of the Denver Nuggets, but you got to change it up. You got to be different. You got to move some things around. And Jaylen Brown is a great defender and would fit in very well there. And then it would open it up at the right number, certainly, but to bring Peyton Watson back. Because they would need him because they'd be trading 2 for 1. So I'm good with that offer from the Denver Nuggets for Jaylen Brown. But they didn't get a yes because they have no picks. So if LeBron's choosing to come to Denver, he's choosing them based on what they look like right now, without much chance that they're going to be able to look any different over his time in Denver. I just don't think that LeBron James is going to be able to come in and affect the amount of change with the Denver Nuggets that he was able to with LA. He's not going to be here long enough. He's not coming into as dire a situation. And even though I think he's still an incredibly productive basketball player and one that can help the Nuggets get back on equal footing with San Antonio and OKC, this isn't 2013 LeBron James. So I think the reason why many Laker fans are okay, at least celebrating at most LeBron's departure, is because of the scar tissue that built up over 8 years with only one title to show for it. I don't think he can have that kind of impact on the Denver Nuggets. Now, and whatever impact he does have in a negative way on the Nuggets, it would outweigh it if he were able to win a title. So your point, Tom, is absolutely a fair one, and it's a question worth asking. But I'm okay with the answer to that. And here's the other part too, from LeBron's standpoint. I'm not saying that he's not going to try and do little things to show that he still has some level of power over whatever organization he plays for. But if he's choosing Denver again because this team is ready to win another title right now. obviously with him in the mix. Without him, they're not. With him, I think they are. LeBron is choosing the Nuggets as they are, not what they could be. Some of his decision going to the Lakers was what the Lakers could be versus what they were at the time. They didn't have Anthony Davis at the time. They were a bad organization and a bad basketball team. LeBron can't save the Denver Nuggets the way he saved the LA Lakers, and the Nuggets also don't need as much saving. But we'll see if that all enters the decision-making process from LeBron James. And yes, I've used the word decision. 719-247-1313. But the point I wanted to get to here. So you have the report that the Nuggets offered Aaron Gordon and Cam Johnson for Jaylen Brown. And now you have another report coming out this weekend. I believe it's Mark Stein, who's been a good source of information when it comes to the Denver Nuggets, saying that the Nuggets have rebuffed multiple trade offers for Cam Johnson. Let me put up my Brian Windhorst fingers. Why would the Denver Nuggets rebuff multiple trade offers for a player that we thought they were just looking to dump? Could it be possible that we actually had the Nuggets' thought process all wrong? That the Denver Nuggets actually weren't looking to just shed salary. That they were always looking to at least run it back, if not look for ways to actually improve the team. And if that is the case, that also surprises people around the NBA, because I believe in that report, there was a line in there that said something to the effect of the Nuggets aren't in as much of a financial crunch as rival teams thought they were. So the thought around the NBA, not just here, but around the NBA was, the Nuggets are going to have to shed salary. Second apron, repeater tax, Stan Kroenke's not going to want to pay that. That's what they thought. And now the Nuggets, and what happened was teams called the Denver Nuggets and went, we'll take Cam Johnson. You want to dump his salary? We'll take him. And the answer they were met with was, no, we don't want to dump him. We want to get something for him, like potentially Jaylen Brown. So could it be that we had the Nuggets all wrong? Or could, like we're seeing with soccer right now, could bullying work? Could public perception help sway someone into a decision? And here's what I mean by this. So the Nuggets had it in their minds that they needed to dump salary, either because they thought it would be the right thing to do or because Stan Kroenke told them they had to. Okay, and upon learning this, the fans revolted, and Nikola Jokic came out and reiterated his comments that he made after the Minnesota series, that this team is not close. And there was just more and more pressure from the outside or on the inside with Nikola Jokic, built up to the point where the Nuggets said, we can't do this. We can't look our fan base and our superstar in the eyes and say, we want to win, and we're just going to give up players. This is what the Boston Celtics are dealing with right now. That you could throw out a lot of things that make sense. 2 players taking up 70% of your salary cap, 2 players that are a little, in terms of skill set, redundant. And Brad Stevens has tried his best this afternoon to make people understand that. And guess what? It's fallen on deaf ears, because you traded Jaylen Brown for a diminished Paul George, and you dealt him to a rival. So nobody wants to hear about how impractical it is to have two players taking up 70% of your salary cap, or the fact that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are very similar players. Nobody wants to hear that stuff. Just like here, nobody wants to hear about the penalties that come along with the repeater tax. I saw a tweet today from a person in the media. Won't say who, but he said that the tax bill for the Denver Nuggets, if they do not get under the repeater, is $177 million. And that fact was met with a resounding so freaking what? Nobody in the Nuggets fan base wants to hear about how much it costs in luxury tax to keep this team together or to improve this team. All fans are thinking is we are in a championship window that is closing, if it's not already closed. This team needs to get better, not worse. So I'll let you decide. I kind of lean towards the latter. I do. I do think that there was enough pressure for the Nuggets to decide, you know what, and maybe there were market forces. Right? Maybe market forces at play. You know, maybe they didn't have a robust market for Cam Johnson. The Peyton Watson market seems to be coming back their way. Like maybe they were anticipating some, you know, not only a big contract for Peyton Watson, maybe they were expecting a lot of people to want Aaron Gordon or want Jamal Murray or want Cam Johnson. And then when that market wasn't as robust, plus the pressure, plus Nikola Jokic's comments, they decided, you know, maybe this is not the year. This is not the year for us to do this. Maybe we got to give it one more shot. Now, Nikola Jokic today, one other thing, and then I'll take a break. Nikola Jokic did say today, after Serbia's FIBA World Cup game, that he wants to sign. Now, it could be lost in translation a little bit, so words matter, but he intends to sign his extension next summer when he has a player option and remain in Denver for the rest of his career. Now, he said it in a different language, and again, lost in translation, because, and why I bring that up is it can be his intent to do that while still trying to leverage his power contractually over the Denver Nuggets to make improvements to this team. Get what I'm saying? Like, I never doubted that Nikola Jokic didn't want to stay in Denver. I knew he wanted to. But I thought his comments and him not being ready to sign the extension right away was him trying to apply a little bit of pressure. If he's saying he intends to sign his extension next summer, that's all well and good, but plans change, intents change. I still think that Nikola Jokic is trying to assert a little bit of pressure on the Denver Nuggets. He intends to sign. He wants to sign. He expects to sign. He could say any of those things. The fact of the matter is he's not under contract. He's not signing an extension now. And that means you have another calendar year where you can screw this up even more and get Nikola Jokic to go, you know what? Change my mind. As unlikely as that sounds, it's a possibility. As long as he doesn't sign his extension, it's still a possibility. So I saw the comments today, and it's good if you're a Nuggets fan to know that Nikola Jokic is not wanting to leave. But I still think that Nikola Jokic is saying that with still the understanding that I want the Nuggets to get better. The Nuggets need to get better. And we'll see what they can do. Jaylen Brown's off the board. LeBron James, who knows? What else could the Denver Nuggets potentially do this offseason to improve the roster? They're supposedly in on DeMar DeRozan. So not only are they not looking to dump players, they're looking to give Peyton Watson $30 million a year and sign DeMar DeRozan. It is a spending spree now that is going on in Denver. Take your thoughts, 719-247-1313. The NFR Open at the Pikes Peak or Bus Rodeo promises edge of your seat excitement, featuring over 200 of the most talented contestants in the business, along with a variety of other traditional Western events sure to please the whole family, including vendors and kid-friendly activities in the PPOBR Fan Zone. Get your tickets at pikespeakorbust.org. That is next week. Pikes Peak or Bus Rodeo, one of the biggest sporting events of the year in the fine city of Colorado Springs. Still waiting to find out whether Flo Balogun will be in the starting 11 tonight for the U.S. men's national team. I think if we were planning this out perfectly, it would be Pochettino sits Balogun in the first half. U.S. gets up 2 or 3 goals, and then they bring him in to score like 3. That would be the perfect scenario. I don't know if Pochettino has it that way in his head, so it will be interesting to see. There is a soccer argument for him not to be in the starting 11 if you got down the road in a different formation, different personnel. If it's me, I'm starting Flo Balogun, and I'm figuring out the rest later. But we'll see what Mauricio Pochettino does. Here's where things get a little bit weirder when it comes to this whole situation with the red card suspension being in itself suspended. FIFA has fined Balogun. Let me repeat that. Flo Balogun has been fined $40,000 for a red card that he got against Bosnia and Herzegovina last week. The very same red card that FIFA, to some level, acknowledged should not have been called. So how does it make any sense that they're saying that the penalty for a red card is not valid, or Flo Balogun in U.S. soccer doesn't have to deal with that, but we're going to get $40,000 out of you? If that doesn't speak to the mindset of FIFA, I don't know what does. Right? From the same people that brought you needless hydration breaks in the middle of both halves comes, we're going to not suspend you, but you got to pay us some money. FIFA, ladies and gentlemen. It just adds to what is a very bizarre situation. And again, I'm glad that Flo Balogun is playing. I believe the bigger injustice of all of this is not the overturn of the red card or the suspension of the suspension. It's that Balogun was shown a red card in the first place. But I am not an ends justify the means guy. I am not a Machiavellian by nature. I think the way you go about something and try to right a wrong matters. And I don't think FIFA went about it the right way. And Belgium has every reason to be furious about this. And UEFA has every reason to be furious about this. Because let's be honest, UEFA, their chances of having the World Cup winner are dwindling. Right? Belgium was one of their last few teams left. So I get the anger. I get the outrage. And they are justified in that. And as much as I am not an ends justify the means guy, I am not someone that believes two rights make a wrong. I am also American. And I root for the U.S. men's national team. And I am glad that one of their best players is going to play. That may sound a little contradictory. I think I found a nice gray area to live in. You can give me your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Here's my hope, though, beyond the U.S. men's national team obviously winning tonight. Let's get this phenomenal tournament back on the rails here. What I hope is, and it's not going to be any solace of Belgium, for Belgium, if they end up getting eliminated and Balogun plays a big part in that, they're going to go back to their home country and they're going to be furious, and I'm not going to blame them. But for most people, Belgium, if they get eliminated tonight, will be out of sight, out of mind. And I hope that this tournament gets back on the rails, because this weekend, up until that red card was overturned, and even including it because the England-Mexico match was phenomenal, this has been an awesome tournament. The biggest stars have shown the brightest. How about Erling Haaland? I don't want to say I feel justified, but I've been saying that Erling Haaland, when you have him, he is the great equalizer. And even if on paper Norway is not as good as their opponent, like Brazil, you got that dude, you got that beast roaming the field for you, you got a chance. And Norway has a chance against anybody remaining in this tournament, including Argentina and France. But we have had, the stars have been phenomenal. The matches have been amazing. The best match of this tournament, and there's been a little bit of a debate right now with England and Mexico as a late entrant. I will hold up the Argentina-Cape Verde match up against it. I don't know that we're going to get a better match than that. That match was phenomenal. The closest thing that I came to that would be like Butler losing to Duke in the Final Four. Right? Because usually these great underdog stories are made great because they prevailed. The underdog did not prevail. Argentina proved to be the better squad. But when is the last time that you watched an underdog lose and still came away with more appreciation for them than the team that beat them? More admiration for the team that lost than the team that won. And it wasn't just the Cape Verde goalkeeper, although Vozinho was phenomenal, and him versus Messi was absolute theater. But how about Argentina landing what they thought was the knockout blow in extra time, only for Cape Verde to come right back and tie the match? Thank you, Cape Verde, for delivering the best match of this tournament. I don't know that it's going to be surpassed. This has been a phenomenal tournament, and I hope it gets back on the rails once we simmer down with all this red card stuff. More Drive Time Sports coming up after this.